Okay, here we're going to make a white and chartreuse bucktail on a 1/2 ounce white head. Let's get cracking. Right, I'm using the latex again, the clear latex. And I'm just going to put a underbind onto that. Just make sure that when you put on your bucktail, it's got something to bind onto. I'm going to put in some more of this Myanmar flash. Comes in this flat flex. I cut it double. So again, basically what I'm doing is just taking a nice long piece, folding it double, so we've got the two split ends, and then attaching the loop end to the back of the bucktail. And I'm going to bind it on with a couple of turns there and just make sure that that's in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to be making the bucktail, as I said, out of white and chartreuse. So I go to my white first. That's going to be on the belly side. Remember, all bucktails, like all fish, have a lighter belly side and a darker top side. So you just basically do exactly the same with your bucktails. Okay, so we've pinched off a bit of white bucktail. We're just going to pinch the ends closed here and remove all the shorter bits. Pinch it again and just remove all the short bits. Okay, the head of the bucktail is predominantly white, so I can remove some of this additional hair because I want to create a two-tone one. Right, that I'm now going to pinch onto the collar of the bucktail and do a couple of initial light backing onto here. Before you tighten it down, what we're going to do is just make sure that your bucktail is nicely lined up. You don't want all the hair lobbed to one side, otherwise when you work that bucktail, you'll have exactly the same thing happening and it'll be knotting up when you're working it. Okay, so there we go. The white is now done. We're now going to get the chartreuse for the two-tone and put that on top of the white. Here I've got a nice bright chartreuse. We want to find bucktail that is of the same consistency hair. You don't want to be putting a soft hair on top of a hard hair and vice versa, because when you're busy working that bucktail, it'll obviously knot a lot easier. Okay, same thing here. We're going to be taking the bucktail at the back. We're going to pinch it down and basically just pull out all the shorter hairs that are in the front. Okay, then we're going to pinch it down neatly. We're going to bring that on top of the collar of the bucktail. We're going to give that just a few winds just to keep it in place. Okay, so there's your bucktail looking now. Now what I like to do is take it out of the vise. And basically what we're going to do now is just make sure that we got our lateral lines nicely separated. And that the bucktail hair, as best you can, is distributed neatly either side of the hook. That basically means when you're working the bucktail, it's going to tangle less and puff a lot better. Okay, I'm happy with that. What we're going to do now is put it back into the vise and really singe that down so that it can't move. Just a good couple of turns on there. Now the last thing we're going to do here now from a dressing point of view is put on the flash, the lateral line. I'm going to take 2 strands for either side, 2 equal lengths. Okay, then what I'm going to do is basically, let's get those equal lengths, is fold and double. Okay, now you've got 4, and then bring back the 2 tag ends, and now you've got 8. And then just take my scissors and cut the 2 looped tag ends. We now have 8 thin strands and looped in the back. And these I'm going to place right where the lateral line should be. Just bind them onto place here. Few horns. And we're going to do exactly the same for the other side. While flashing, we're going to take 2 strands of it. And make sure that our 2 strands are the same length. We're going to fold it double, before. And we're going to bring up the 2 tag ends, trim off the tag. Now we've got 8 ends and just 2 folded on that side. That we're going to place on the lateral line again and just secure it in place. Let's have a look at our progress so far. This is your last chance to make sure all your hairs are nicely in the correct place. You can see the lateral lines busy forming there with all that flash. We're going to put a couple of more turns around over here, and then we're going to trim off that excess hair. Okay, basically now I'm going to take our Stanley or craft knife and just run it around the edging of your binding, just getting rid of all those longer pieces of hair that still stuck out on this side. Almost there. Once that's done, we're going to give it a bit more of a bind to finish it off, and then we're going to coat it. I've actually nicked it there, but that's not a problem. We'll sort that out as we go along. Back into the vise. Okay, so now just to finish off the bucktail, you need to bring that whipping back underneath the cotton, and here we just take a piece of folded over cotton, quite simply make a loop. Okay, wet that a little bit, lay that on top with the loop pointing back towards the head. Do about 4 or 5 turns through. You can now trim off the latex. We're going to stick it through that loop, pull it, hold it tight, bring through your 2 tag ends, and that's it. It's now been brought back through the underbinds. Last thing now is to give this a little bit of a coating. Here I like to use a normal clear nail varnish, and in that I've added 1 or 2 drops of normal glass fiber resin hardener, and that just gives this nail varnish a nice hard finish, and it just protects the color which has just been powder coated onto the lead head. A little bit stops it from banging onto the rocks and chipping a lot quicker. I normally do 1 or 2 coats, the first one just on the vise here, let it dry, and I come back and I put a second, sometimes a third coat on. But there you go. One times Chartreuse and white bucktail, ready to fish this afternoon. There we go. Tight lines, guys.